How far do you think that religion has contributed to that divisiveness in the political sphere?
Well, the kind of bromide would be to say self-righteousness is real righteousness. And religion has always been a great, I mean, historically, there's evidence of religion's ability to start wars and kill people, and that's nothing new. And I think there's a way in which that's part of what's going on here. It has a way of solidifying political interests around values in ways that are deeply meaningful and deeply motivational for some people. Yeah.
Yes, I would say the same thing. I mean, religion in itself hardly acts in this kind of situations. It's more that how religion is becoming used as a vehicle, and I think that is partly because of secularization. Religion has come loose from certain traditions and is able to mobilize for new groups in new ways. And I would say it's the same process, although perhaps in Western Europe and the Scandinavian countries, the key issue is national values and identity, because that is what is being questioned in a more diverse society.
And the problematic in the U.S. compared to the European situation, and I think this is at least a speculation on my part, is part of the reason why our debates around those issues are more intense here, is that argument about what the national identity is more unstable here. That is, it needs to be policed, because the national identity of the United States is a construction to a level that it's not the case in Europe. And so we've had to make a kind of a national identity around the American story, the Horatio Alger myth, things like that. And those are fragile, and we know they're fragile, and that's part of why it becomes, I think, a more intense debate in this context in some ways.
Joshua.
I would say, as an American who's also looking across the Atlantic, I'm not sure how much religion has played in the discourse over the last 2 to 3 years in actual argumentation, even amongst evangelicals. It seems to me that we're often fighting over more about what does it mean to be American, how do we relate to issues of lost American power and priority, about religious or actually as much racial and ethnic diversity as anything else. At the same time, oddly, this may not be the dominant opinion, I don't think religion is playing as much of a factor in the States. I do see it playing an increasing factor in the European discourse over the last 2 or 3 years. So you see places like France, like Francois Fillon, who's appealing to Catholic heritage of France and reclaiming this identity in a way that seems quite odd in the face of the tradition of laissez-faire, or with Cameron or Merkel or others appealing to something like Christian secular national heritage that all sort of coalesce into a strange amalgamation, and Christianity being explicitly invoked in Europe in a way that I don't remember seeing prior to the movement of migrants, especially in 2015.
Yes.
And I agree about the U.S. context in that it is not explicitly in the political discourse in things like one party being identified with one kind of religion, another party being identified with another. Instead, you have on the one side the Republican Party, which espouses a certain kind of generic conservative Christianity, and a Democratic Party which does not engage that debate. So yes, in fact, it's very much there, but it's not explicitly in the discourse. It's a really interesting situation.
Great.
Yeah, I guess one thing I'd be hesitant to do is to kind of reify religion as this thing. And think of it rather maybe as a rhetorical strategy, or even I would call it almost a media practice, right? Yeah. And so one of the big differences between like a Protestant media practice is one where you're saying you can't question me because it's what I believe in my heart, versus other groups. So I think you've got to take that into account. But I think the big difference in the last 10 years is really that for a long time, and I would go, you could go all the way back to Tocqueville, I guess, in the 1830s, that religion in America was something which was seen to moralize people in such a way that we as these crazy democratic anarchists didn't break out into total anarchy, right? It was the civilizing thing which brought us together in congregations, which brought us together in groups. And it seems to me that that's breaking down at this point, that civil religion's breaking down, and then it's being amplified and shattered through a notion of the culture wars. And I think a lot of times the different sides aren't talking to each other And they're talking to each other, but they're not really communicating. I think we're getting to that point. So I think religion has always been there, but I really do think it's this kind of shattering of an American civil religion and intensification of the culture wars in ways we haven't seen probably since the mid-'60s.